My name is Serafina Rowe. I grew up in a small town called Cedar Creek, a place nestled in a valley where the scent of pine and damp earth is a constant companion, and where everyone's story is intertwined with everyone else's. My story for the longest time felt like a footnote in my brother's. He was the sun and I was a satellite, my orbit dictated by his gravitational pull. My parents, loving and well-meaning in the way of many parents, saw in my brother, Julian, a reflection of their own comfortable, familiar dreams. He was athletic, charming, and followed a straight, predictable path. I was the quiet one, the observer, the girl who found more solace in the intricate patterns of a fern frond than in the roar of a high school football game. My path led me away from Cedar Creek, north to the sprawling, rain-washed city of Port Blossom and the hallowed grounds of Rainier University. There I pursued a passion that had taken root in the forests of my childhood, ecology. I wanted to understand how broken things could heal, how scarred landscapes could be coaxed back to life. For 8 years I dedicated myself to this study, culminating in a doctoral dissertation on the riparian restoration of post-industrial riverbeds. It was to me a kind of magic, the science of second chances. The PowerPoint slides glowed on my laptop screen at 4 in the morning, the soft hum of the computer a familiar lullaby. Each slide was a chapter of my life, months of trudging through muddy riverbanks, of painstaking data analysis, of moments of frustration that gave way to breathtaking discovery. My valedictorian address for Rainier University's doctoral graduation had to be more than just good, it had to be a bridge. Not for the audience of esteemed professors and fellow graduates, but for the 3 people whose approval I had unknowingly been chasing my whole life. Mom, Dad, Julian. I had sent them the tickets 3 months prior. Not just in an envelope, but carefully mounted in a simple wooden frame, behind a photo of me at age 6, holding up a jar of murky creek water, a proud, gap-toothed grin on my face. I'd told them that day I was going to be a doctor for the trees. My dad had chuckled and ruffled my hair. Whatever you say, little sprout. 21 years later I had done it. A PhD in restoration ecology at 27. My research on microbial soil amendments was being praised as a significant leap forward. I had a fellowship waiting for me at the prestigious Wildwood Conservancy, a dream job that would allow me to put my theories into practice. And I had 3 front-row seats for the family who had, with a gentle sort of blindness, missed every single signpost along my journey. It's just too long a drive for a master's defense, they had reason 2 years ago. Julian's team is in the regional playoffs that weekend, was the explanation when I received the Young Ecologist of the Year award. We're trying to save up for a new roof, they'd said when I presented my preliminary findings at a national conference in a city only 3 hours from their home. But this, I told myself, was different. This was the summit. The culmination of every late night, every sacrificed weekend, every lonely holiday spent in the lab. This was the moment the satellite was meant to finally shine on its own. My phone vibrated softly on the desk, a tiny disruption in the pre-dawn stillness. A text from Julian. Hey Serafina. Incredible news. I'm going to ask Isabel to marry me tomorrow night. Mom's planning a surprise engagement party for us at the house afterwards. You'll be done with your graduation thing by 6, right? The party starts at 7. I read the text twice. My graduation ceremony, the one I was the valedictorian for, was scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. It would last at least 2 hours, followed by a departmental reception that was crucial for my future, a chance to connect with the very people who would shape my career. Even if I were to sprint from the stage, my doctoral robes flying behind me, and drive with a reckless abandon I didn't possess, the journey from Port Blossom to Cedar Creek was a solid 2 hours without traffic. I typed a reply, my fingers feeling clumsy and slow. Julian, that's wonderful news about Isabel. But my ceremony starts at 4 and goes until at least 6. The reception after is really important. This is my PhD graduation. His reply came back almost instantly. Don't be difficult, Serafina. It's one party. Family should be a priority. Difficult. The word didn't slap me, it seeped into me, a cold, familiar ache. Difficult was choosing a field they didn't understand. Difficult was pouring my savings into my research instead of a down payment on a house near them. Difficult was spending my 20s hunched over microscopes and academic journals while their lives unfolded in a comfortable, predictable narrative I was never quite a part of. I'll do my best, I typed back, the lie a bitter taste in my mouth. I knew then that my best would not be good enough. The morning of the graduation dawned gray and misty, the sky weeping a soft drizzle onto the city. I did my own makeup in the quiet of my small studio apartment, my hands surprisingly steady as I tried to mask the weariness under my eyes. The storm was no longer in my chest. It had settled into a profound, quiet calm. My doctoral hood, a beautiful sweep of peacock blue and forest green, lay across my bed. It was not armor but a tapestry. I had earned every single thread of it on my own. At 11 o'clock, a new text message arrived, this one from my mother. Hi honey, a little change of plans. Isabel's parents can only make it to the party tomorrow afternoon, so we're moving it up to 4 p.m. We're so sorry to miss your ceremony in person, but your dad is setting up the big monitor so we can all watch the live stream together before the guests arrive. We are so proud of you. Love you. I stared at the phone at the cheerful exclamation point until the words swam into a meaningless blur. They weren't coming. The faint, flickering hope I hadn't even allowed myself to acknowledge was finally extinguished. They would watch me on a screen, an event to be checked off before the real event of the day began. I typed and deleted half a dozen replies, ranging from furious to heartbroken. In the end, I settled on a single hollow word. Okay. The grand convocation hall was a vast, cavernous space, filled with the murmurs of 1,000 stories reaching their climax. It was a sea of black robes and beaming faces. I walked down the aisle to take my seat on the stage, my path taking me directly past the front row. There they were, 3 empty chairs, Section C, seats 4, 5, and 6. A perfect, unobstructed view of the podium. A small cordoned-off island of absence in an ocean of presence. I tried to focus on the intricate woodwork of the ceiling, on the weight of the program in my hands, on anything but the sight of other families squeezing together, clutching bouquets of flowers and aiming cameras, their faces radiant with a love that was tangible. A love that showed up. Dr. Eris Thorne, my advisor, found me in the flurry of activity backstage. His warm, wrinkled hand came to rest on my arm. Serafina, you're ready for this. Where's your fan club? His eyes, usually so full of academic fire, were soft with kindness. I felt a strange need to protect my parents, a reflex as old as I was. Oh, they had a last-minute family thing come up. Dr. Thorne's smile faded. He had met them only once, a brief, awkward encounter when they dropped me off as a nervous freshman 8 years ago. He saw right through me. No, he said, his voice gentle but firm. That's not okay, Serafina. For a moment, I thought I would crumble. To have someone else finally say it, to validate the long-held secret of my hurt, was almost too much to bear. He squeezed my arm. But you are going to go out on that stage and you are going to give that speech, and it will be magnificent, because that is who you are. I had written 5 drafts of my speech. The first 4 were perfectly acceptable. They spoke of gratitude, of the power of perseverance, of the future of ecological restoration. They were safe. The 5th draft, the one I had written at 4:30 a.m. after Julian's text, was the truth. Standing at that heavy oak podium, looking out at the blur of faces, I made a choice. I would not speak to the empty chairs. I would speak to the other people in the room who knew what it was to have empty chairs of their own. Distinguished faculty, fellow graduates, honored guests, and loved ones, I began, my voice clear and steady in the sudden hush. I want to talk to you today about gardens. A soft murmur rippled through the hall. Not the usual start to a valedictory address. We all begin our lives in a garden tended by others. We are planted, watered, and given sunlight. We are told which way to grow. For many, this garden is a place of unconditional support, where our roots can spread deep and our branches can reach for the sky without reservation. I see the evidence of those beautiful, thriving gardens all around me today in the proud faces of the families who are here. I paused, letting my eyes drift for a fleeting moment to the 3 empty seats. But some of us are planted in soil that is not suited for us. We are seeds of oak trees planted in a garden meant for roses. We are told we are growing the wrong way, that our leaves are the wrong shape, that our ambition for the sun is too greedy. The silence in the hall was now absolute. I could feel the collective breath being held. 3 months ago, I sent 3 invitations to my family. They are for those seats right there. I made a small, simple gesture, not of accusation but of fact. They are empty today. My family is preparing for a surprise engagement party for my brother. They sent a text this morning to say they would try to watch me on a screen. I saw Dr. Thorne in the front row of the faculty section. Tears were glistening in his eyes. I spent 8 years at this university. 8 years of muddy boots and frozen fingers. 8 years of choosing the silent company of the forest over the warmth of a family holiday. 8 years of learning the language of trees and rivers. And in those 8 years, my family has been present for exactly 0 of my academic milestones. But here's the lesson I learned, the most important piece of data I have ever collected. A seed that is not meant for its garden is not a failed seed. It is simply in the wrong place. And disappointment is not a judgment. It is a quiet teacher. It shows you where you are not being nourished. It shows you that you must learn to seek your own sunlight, to draw your own water, to become your own gardener. My work is in ecological restoration. I study how to bring life back to places that have been declared dead. I've learned that you cannot force a river to return to its old poison channel. You must carve a new one. You cannot force a forest to grow where the soil has been stripped of all its nutrients. You must first rebuild the soil. You cannot engineer a solution for a system that does not want to heal. So to my fellow graduates, and especially to those of you with empty seats in your own rows, to those of you whose greatest triumphs were met with a distracted nod or a last-minute cancellation, this is for you. We learn to celebrate our own breakthroughs. We learn to be our own champions. We filled those empty seats with resilience, with tenacity, and with the profound, quiet knowledge that our worth is not measured by the number of people who show up, but by the strength of the gardens we build for ourselves. My voice, which had been so steady, finally trembled. I let it. My research will help restore waterways that have been polluted for a century. My family will miss hearing me share that accomplishment because they are at a party for a woman my brother has been dating for less than a year. And that is okay, because I am no longer growing for their garden. I am growing for the 6-year-old girl with the jar of creek water who believed she could be a doctor for the trees. I am growing for the undergraduate who ate Thanksgiving dinner alone in the biology lab, because going home meant listening to 4 hours of stories about Julian's sales promotions. I am growing for every brilliant, quiet soul in this room who chose the difficult path of becoming themselves over the easy path of being what someone else expected. The tears came then, not of anger but of release. Hot and honest. We are not difficult for choosing ourselves. We are not wrong for outgrowing the gardens that were too small for us. We are not obligated to prune our branches so we don't block someone else's sun. So here's my challenge to you, class of 2024. Stop waiting for water from a well that has run dry. Stop trying to bloom for gardeners who do not appreciate your colors. Find your own soil. Find your own light. Find the people who will celebrate the magnificent, unique, and powerful way you grow. Cultivate your own wild, beautiful, and resilient gardens. I looked directly at the camera at the back of the hall, the one streaming this moment into a living room 2 hours away. Mom, Dad, Julian. I know you might be watching. Or perhaps the party has already started. Either way, I want you to know that I have finally bloomed. Not in spite of your absence, but because of it. It taught me how to find my own sun. And that is the real restoration. To the class of 2024, I finished, my voice finding its strength again. We are ecologists of our own lives now. We have proven we can thrive in the harshest conditions. Go forth and heal the world. But please, start with the soil beneath your own feet. I stepped back from the podium into a silence so profound it felt like the moment after a lightning strike. And then it came. Not polite applause. It was a wave of sound, a roar of catharsis, a standing ovation that felt like a shared exhalation of 1,000 private pains. I saw students and parents with tears streaming down their faces. I saw heads nodding in fierce, personal understanding. I saw strangers reaching for each other's hands. Dr. Thorne met me the moment I stepped off the stage, wrapping me in a hug that was fierce and paternal. That was the bravest, most honest thing I have ever heard in this hall, he whispered into my hair. My phone, tucked deep in the pocket of my robe, was vibrating itself into a frenzy. I ignored it. I ignored it through the rest of the ceremony, through the moment my name was called and I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, the weight of it feeling solid and real in my hand. I ignored it through the reception, where person after person, students, parents, even a few professors, approached me, not with platitudes, but with their own stories. A young man whose parents missed his law school graduation for a golf tournament. A woman whose family belittled her art history degree. We were a secret, silent club and I had just spoken our creed aloud. Finally, hours later, sitting in the quiet sanctuary of my car as the city lights began to twinkle in the deepening twilight, I looked at my phone. 52 missed calls. Over 300 text messages. The university had posted the video of the speech on their social media channels. It was already rocketing past 100,000 views. From Julian, how could you do that? How could you embarrass us on the most important day of my life? From Dad, you need to call the university and have them take that video down. Now! This is a private family matter. From Mom, I don't understand why you would be so cruel. Isabel's parents were there when your speech started making the rounds. They think we're terrible parents. My heart is broken. And then there were the others. from numbers I didn't recognize. Your speech just gave me the courage to book a flight and miss my cousin's wedding to attend my own portfolio review. Thank you. My parents chose my brother's soccer game over my nursing school pinning ceremony. I cried through your whole speech. I feel so seen. As a father, your speech was a wake-up call. I just canceled a meeting to make sure I'm at my daughter's recital tomorrow. Thank you for the lesson. By the next morning, it had over 1 million views. By the end of the week, it was closer to 10 million. I received requests for interviews from national news outlets, morning talk shows, and podcasts focused on everything from educational achievement to family dynamics. Publishers reached out with offers for book deals. I politely declined them all. I hadn't given the speech for fame. I had given it for freedom. Instead, I started my fellowship at the Wildwood Conservancy, losing myself in work that felt meaningful, tangible. I spent my days knee-deep in cool, clear water, monitoring the return of native trout to a stream we had worked for years to restore. My hands were perpetually stained with earth. I was home. I did agree to one interview, a written piece for the university's alumni magazine. The journalist asked why I thought the speech had struck such a deep chord. Because I wrote in my reply, we are raised on the idea that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water. It's a beautiful sentiment, but it's an incomplete one. It doesn't account for the quiet grief of those whose family life is not a source of strength, but a source of sorrow. We needed to hear that it's okay to build our own support systems. That a found family of mentors, friends, and colleagues who nourish your soul is just as valid, sometimes more so, than the family you were born into. An empty chair doesn't have to mean an empty life. About 6 months later, my mother called. It was the first time I'd heard her voice since the flurry of angry texts after the graduation. Serafina, she began, her tone strained. Your great-aunt Eleanor has been diagnosed with breast cancer. The community in Cedar Creek is putting on a big fundraiser to help with her medical bills. I'm so sorry to hear that, Mom, I said, my heart aching for a woman I remembered fondly from my childhood. Of course, I'll send a generous donation. Well, that's wonderful, honey, but we need more than that. We were hoping you would come. Maybe say a few words. You're a public speaker now. People listen to you. It would draw a much bigger crowd. The irony was so profound it was almost dizzying. My voice, which was not important enough to be heard in person at my own graduation, was now a commodity to be used. I took a deep, steadying breath, the scent of the pine forest outside my small office window filling my lungs. No, Mom. A stunned silence on the other end of the line. No? But... Serafina, this is for family. My presence wasn't a priority for my greatest achievement, I said, my voice not cold, but calm and clear, like a river that has finally found its course. So I cannot offer it as a tool for your fundraiser now. I will send a check and I will send Aunt Eleanor my love. That is what I can give. That's not fair, she whispered. Neither were the empty seats, I replied softly, and then for the first time in my life, I ended the conversation on my own terms. I hung up the phone and went back to my work, back to the maps of watersheds and the charts of invertebrate populations. My worth was measured here in the slow, patient return of life to a wounded earth. The speech still finds new life online every spring, a perennial that blooms alongside the graduation announcements. I get emails from students and parents all over the world. Some are from parents, filled with a dawning shame, admitting that the video made them reevaluate which of their children's pursuits they deemed important. Many more are from students, thanking me for giving them permission to stop waiting for an approval that was never going to come, permission to be proud of themselves. The 3 people the speech was originally for, however, never truly heard it. Julian told me as much at Thanksgiving, the one family gathering I agreed to attend that year, hoping some fragile bridge could be built. It was the last one I ever went to. We turned it off, he said, passing me the gravy. He wasn't being cruel, he was just stating a fact as he saw it. Right after you started talking about the empty chairs. It was a real downer. Isabel was so upset you tried to ruin our special night. I looked at him, at my brother, the sun around which I had orbited for so long. And I didn't feel anger or even sadness. I just felt distance. A peaceful, celestial distance. It wasn't your night, Julian, I said, a gentle smile touching my lips. It was mine. And the fact that you still can't see that is precisely why the garden had to change. They didn't invite me for Christmas that year. Isabel, who is now my sister-in-law, wrote a vague but pointed post on social media about the importance of cutting out negative people who can't be happy for anyone else's success. I spent that Christmas Eve hiking a trail in the mountains with Dr. Thorne and a couple of friends from the Conservancy. We watched the sunset paint the snow-covered peaks in hues of rose and gold, and we shared a thermos of hot cocoa. It was quiet, and it was deeply joyful. My real family, the people who had shown up, not because of obligation, but because of genuine connection. They understood. My PhD hangs on the wall of my small cabin now, the one I built on a piece of land overlooking a restored estuary. Next to it is a framed printout of an email I received from a young woman in Brazil. Her parents had missed her graduation from engineering school to attend her brother's birthday party. "You made me realize," she wrote, "that I can hang my diploma on the wall, and even if there is an empty space beside it where a family photo should be, the picture is still complete." 3 empty chairs. 10 million views. One simple truth. Sometimes the most beautiful gardens are the ones we plant ourselves in the wild, open spaces where we finally have enough room to grow. And sometimes the families that heal us are the ones we build from the strangers who wander in, see our colors, and decide to stay and watch us bloom.